Good evening and welcome to Your Right to Know by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Mary Lotze and I will be your host for this evening's show. This is going to be kind of an interesting show because what we're going to do is really take a little bit of walk through history, religious history and secular history. And I have a very special guest who's come to us tonight all the way from Stoughton. Rabbi Henry,
yes.
Welcome so much for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. Oi.
Now, could you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself and your synagogue and congregation?
So I am what is known as a Messianic rabbi, a Messianic Jew, which means I'm a Jew who accepts Yeshua, we call him by his Hebrew name, Jesus as the Messiah. Our congregation is a congregation of Jewish people and Gentiles who also accept him as the Messiah, but we teach the gospel through its original Hebrew history, culture, language, and idiom. Because the filter that we use is very important. We cannot use the filter of the 21st century Western cultural context to interpret the words of a 2,000-year-old document, the New Testament, or as we call it in Hebrew, the Brit Chadashah. Now, I was raised an Orthodox Jew, and in the 70s, I became a backslidden hippie, hitchhiking from coast to coast, schlepping my tuches all over the country, and I had an experience with the Lord, and it was a miraculous experience. It wasn't a burning bush, Exodus 3 kind of a situation, but I certainly heard from the Lord, and I was trying to commit suicide. I hitchhiked to Colorado, and I went there to throw myself off a mountain, not because I wanted to die, but because I didn't know what to live for. And somebody had given me a Brit Chadashah, a New Testament, and the Lord spoke to me and said, read that Bible. And I did, and faith comes by hearing, and hearing the Word of God, the Scripture says, and all of a sudden, I realized something. Oi, Jesus, he was a Jew. Who knew that? I thought at best, he's a Catholic, or like his cousin, maybe he's a Baptist. John was a Baptist. That was a joke. And so I came to faith, and I've been in ministry for 45 years. I lead what is known as Congregation Sha'ar HaShemayim, the Gate of Heaven, meaning Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah. And I've been there for 23 years now. But I've been in ministry for 45 years.
What a that's a pretty amazing introduction. When I think this is the holiday season and everyone wants to look forward to the end of one year and the turnover of a new year, and that's very comforting to think that you had this revelation of spirit. I had a
true revelation.
And could really find something positive and turn your life in a different direction. I'm sure many of our viewers are facing that right now.
Yeah. But people are lonely. They're heartbroken.
Yeah.
They don't know what to live
they're broken.
For. Yeah, they don't know what to live for.
Right. And, so this brings us kind of back to where I really want to start from. October 7th, 2023 is, for the Jewish people, a second Holocaust.
Yes, it is.
And there are many people out there who don't believe it, maybe deny it ever happened, or they dismiss it that it wasn't a big deal.
Or they applaud it.
Could you tell our viewers exactly what we're talking about? What happened on October 7th, 2023?
The hard thing is I've read the Quran. I know what it says. I study world religions. Of course, I study the Scripture more than anything else, but I have studied world religions. And people do not understand the premise of Islam is that they want to take over by hook or by crook. It matters not whether it's violent, whether it's jihad, physical jihad, or whether there's another doctrine called hijra, jihad by demographics, so they can outbirth us and they can put us into a situation where eventually we have to submit to what's known as dehimitude. They're trying to conquer the world. There are approximately 15 million Jews in the world. That's about it. There are over 1 billion Muslims, and they have been trying to take over Israel, that strip of land, which is about the size of New Jersey.
You're talking Gaza?
Yeah. No. I'm talking about all of Israel.
Okay.
Israel is only about the size of New Jersey. Actually, it's a little bit smaller. And of course, in 2005, Ariel Sharon, who was called the lion of the settler movement, he gave them that Gaza Strip that was totally and had prepared for everything they needed, all the hydroponic gardens. He gave them the infrastructure, the cities, the buildings. They took over everything. And he gave them that strip of land, the Gaza Strip, which was at one time the original people that were there were the Philistines. They were from Crete, and they came over. They were seafaring people, so they came to that area and took over. There's no more Philistines left. So, of course, right now, Gaza, which is attached to the Rafah crossing in Egypt, and it has its borders also with Israel, it's been the place where Ariel Sharon gave them that land to see if they could make it last, if they could actually build a society for themselves. And what did they do? They tore down the buildings. They tore down the infrastructure. They dug tunnels throughout the entire area. And for all intents and purposes, anything that had the hands of Jews upon it, they destroyed. I mean, they were given, if you look online, go online and check it out and look at pictures of Gaza before. The Jewish people, the Israeli society, gave them a place that was fit for them to live in every way, shape, or form.
And
Israel,
in peace.
And peace. And supplied their water, supplied the payment for all of the leaders of Hamas, not Hamas actually, Hamas wasn't elected until 2006, but the leadership of the Palestinian Authority. They paid their salaries, they gave them water, they didn't charge them, they gave them everything that they needed. It wasn't good enough for them because they wanted to take over all of Israel. The expression that they use, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which most people have no clue what it means, has to do with the Jordan River, which of course Jordan is after that, and the Mediterranean Sea. They want every Jew off the land. They don't want to live in peace. And so they basically, on October 7th, attacked Israel, the kibbutzim, and the areas in the southern part of Israel that bordered Gaza, and turned an entire event into another Holocaust. In the words of Winston Churchill, a day that will live in infamy. And they basically came in, and a lot of the people that were in that area were called the peaceniks, kibbutzniks and peaceniks, and they were working to help the Gazans come into Israel for jobs. They were bringing them to their appointments. They were helping them get through the checkpoints of the borders, because it was their own little plot of land. Of course there's going to be a border. Of course there's going to be security, because we didn't start bombing them. They've been bombing Israel since 1963, when Yasser Arafat declared the Palestinian Liberation Organization. He gave that title to make it sound like the Palestinians were the ancient indigenous people of the land, when there's actually, and I'll use a term that most people don't even think about, there are no such thing, or there is no such people group known as Palestinians. They are Arabs from all over that area, from Jordan, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Egypt, and other countries that came into Israel. And basically, when Israel started coming back in the late 1800s under Eliezer ben Yehuda, Theodor Herzl, and other great leaders, they were buying land from the Ottoman Turkish Empire. From 1517 to 1917, the Turks controlled that area. Where was the world outcry to the Turks? Give the Palestinians back their land. It just didn't exist. And so Israel was buying land off these absentee Turkish landlords for $1,000 an acre in the early 1900s. It was malaria-infested swamps. It was desert. The best land for sale in America was like $130-something an acre, the best, most fertile land. So Israel started buying this land, draining the swamps, planting trees, making the desert recede, literally recede. And of course, people from all over the Arab nations basically said, there's buildings, there's infrastructure, there's schools, there's industry, and they started flooding. Coming in. Now, it doesn't take much to outnumber the Jews. Well, like I said, we're about 15 million people in the world, and there's over 1 billion Muslims. How much does it take to outnumber us? And they started outnumbering the Jewish people and bringing their culture in, and Israel allowed it to happen because they were trying to be a
good neighbor.
Yeah, good neighbor, exactly. But then they started bringing in this mentality, because you've never seen, I guarantee you, listen to this, you've never seen a Jew walk into a crowded Muslim marketplace and with a bomb attached to his vest yell, "Jehovah is great," boom. It's never happened. And so it has been happening since the beginning of the Palestinian state, as they call it, which it's not a state, that they've been trying to kill the Jews. And as I said, they had everything that they needed. Yasser Arafat refused to accept any peace plan that was offered to him by the nation of Israel. Flat out wouldn't receive it. Oslo Accords, everything that, I can't go into all that history, it's too long, and we only have so much time.
But just to recap, that day, October 7th, 2023, 2 years ago, my numbers show 1,200 Israelis were killed outright within a couple of hours, and that's a large percent of the population that was there. And more than 250 Israelis were taken hostage, brutally raped, burned alive, babies burned alive, decapitated, tortured. It defied any semblance of humanity.
Exactly.
And this was perpetrated by a terrorist group of Arabs known as Hamas.
But supported by the people in the land. It wasn't just the terrorist groups. You obviously are going to find innocents in every group. You're always going to find a faction that is going to be appalled by this. They don't want anything to do with this. But I have to be perfectly honest with you. With my sources in Israel, I've been to Israel many times, like 10 times. I go there. I have friends who are journalists in Israel, who are tour guides in Israel, who are professors in Israel. I always have a couch to sleep on in Israel. And according to my sources and other people that I listen to that I consider to be very factual, that this event that happened was supported by the, I'm going to use the word Palestinian because for the lack of a better term, the people who were in Gaza, just the regular folks. They were giving out candy, they were celebrating, they were rejoicing over the fact that this was a victory for them. And it was a horrendous event. So it's not just Hamas. Remember, they voted for Hamas.
Could you explain what Hamas is to our viewers?
Hamas
it's a word we hear a lot. It's a group we hear a lot, but I don't think people know who they are or how they...
Hamas is a proxy group for, help me out here, not Iran. Yeah, Iran, mental block. For Iran. And they are funded by Iran for the purpose of keeping their hands out of the mix and sending somebody else to do the proxy work. They are, I'm not going to use the word extremist, because if you are a good Muslim, the highest goal, according to the charter of Hamas, is to die in jihad. They don't care if they die. We celebrate life. They celebrate death. So if you just read, go online, look at the charter of Hamas, Fatah, the Muslim Brotherhood. They actually claim in their charter, you can find it anywhere, you don't have to dig in some ancient cryptic archival library somewhere. They actually claim that they are a franchise of the Muslim Brotherhood, which of course wants everyone dead and wants to take over. The Jewish people are not imperialists. We have the land of the size of New Jersey. If you took every Islamic state, I think there's about 57, put them together, you would have a landmass the size of America, 1/3 of Alaska, and no, 1/3 of Canada, I'm sorry. America, 1/3 of Canada up to the Arctic Circle, and Alaska and Hawaii. And the Jews can't have a country the size of Najazi. You know what I'm saying? So Hamas is a terrorist organization that was voted in 2006.
What was the reason they did this on that particular day? It was a beautiful day.
They've been planning it.
Holiday.
Yeah.
People were celebrating. They had festivals happening. It was just
to fulfill their goal.
Just like 9/11. You put a dart and you pick a day and you just go for it.
Well, they picked a day on a Jewish holy day so that they could, of course, insult Israel, you know, as far as they possibly could go.
So let's bring that history to America. Why is it that we have such empathy, sympathy for these
terrorists,
barbarians?
Because virtue signaling, the idea of, give me the word, I'm having a mental block, acceptance. What's the other word that they use? It's not acceptance. Help me out here. I'm getting old. Anyways, tolerance. Tolerance in our society seems to be the highest virtue that we value. It's not truth. It's not love. It's not compassion.
It's not honesty.
It's not honesty.
It's not life.
It's not being chaste until marriage. You know, being pure until you're. It's not being having fidelity. Everything is infidelity. You see it in preachers. You see it in rabbis.
Yeah.
It's all over the
politicians.
The
I mean, we see it all over.
Vault. It's incredible. So unfortunately, people don't do the work themselves. There's a tremendous amount of information that they don't have any clue. Like I said, ask them from what river to what sea, and I've heard people say ignorant things like, the Mississippi?
Yeah.
Yeah, that river? It's like, you want to
I know.
explode your head.
I know.
So they're lazy, they're ignorant, they want to do their virtue signaling of making sure that they are accepting of all things, but they don't know what they're accepting. And yet there's such an incongruity between the groups that are supporting this terrorist group. Like, they will run around with shirts that say, Queers for Palestine. And you know what they would do in Palestine if they had a homosexual there.
Right.
They'd go to the one-way flight school.
Right. We saw that oftentimes. They would make them jump off buildings, leap off buildings.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
that
I said,
was
the
very,
one-way flight school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so again, is there any logical? I really believe it's more than that, though. I think there's a major spiritual component as well. When you get into a situation like that and you're celebrating a culture of death, I mean, let's face it, that's got to be satanic. Mm-hmm. I can't accept anything else other than the satanic inspiration. Islam is, they might not like on TV what I'm saying, but Islam is a mafia death cult.
It's not a religion.
It's not a religion, no, it's a mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why the term dehimitude, where you become a slave. You can live in an Islamic culture as long as you live as a slave, pay the jizya, which is the exorbitant tax, extortion. Mm-hmm. You want to do good in the neighborhood, pay the tax, you know. We'll protect you. And, you know, it's bad.
So not only, okay, I'll accept the fact that so many of our college and university students are just dumb. They're just dumb.
Hate to say, but you're right.
People. But how do we forgive the professors? How do we forgive at some of our elite institutions? How do we forgive the professors for promoting this, backing it, supporting the students, not correcting them, not clarifying,
I know.
not awakening their sensitivities?
There has to be a penalty for bad behavior. I'm not saying there can't be redemption. I always look for redemption in my congregation. Mm-hmm. Everything can be repented of. But the word repentance in Hebrew is teshuvah, which means 180 degrees in the opposite direction. But there does have to be penalty for sin. And there does have to be penalty for wrong actions. And the problem is we let everyone get away with it. So the penalty has to happen before they can realize what they have done. And then the redemption process can happen. It doesn't happen from the beginning. It happens after there's a penalty. People, look, I don't consider myself a Democrat or Republican or an independent. I vote for the person. Let me put it this way. I'm definitely not a Democrat. But I'm not a Republican because I've watched that. I call them, and it's going to be bad, maybe you won't like this, I call them Demoncrats and Republicans. Yeah. Because the Republicans don't do what they need to do to cleanse our society of people who want to destroy everything about Western culture. We do have a culture that is elevated above all other cultures in many ways. Not everybody, but there is freedom, and we fight for it all the time. We're losing our freedom. It's incredible because people just abdicate. They don't fight, and they don't fight properly. They would rather fight with fists than fight with ideas.
Or guns.
Mm-hmm.
Or weapons.
Fists or guns, same difference. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Now, so you were talking, you brought up politics, so I want to ask you this. Why is it that so many Jews are hardcore Democrats?
All right.
In light of all of this that we've just talked about.
I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest condensed version. My diadushka and babushka, mein bobe and mein zede, my grandparents, came from Zhytomyr, Ukraine, which was a very Jewish community. And of course, it was under the control of the Soviets, and they escaped literally as the Bolsheviks were coming in. Many, many Jews didn't get out, and they were raised in an atheistic setting, an atheistic community where they had to hide from being Jewish. So the scripture says, these things you shall teach to your children when you sit, when you walk, when you rise in the way, in Deuteronomy. And they didn't teach their children. And so these children ended up becoming part of the zeitgeist of what was happening in society at the time. They were hiding from being Jews. They weren't proud of being Jews. And they didn't learn about their Judaism. And they didn't learn about God and his edicts. And so they became in many ways socialistic, some of them communistic. Let's face it, some of the founders of communism were Jews. And you have so many secular Jews because their parents didn't teach them. And so that's the Reader's Digest conversion, Reader's Digest condensed version, that they literally came into their adulthood without any understanding of the ways of God.
And this is just being perpetuated.
Yeah, being perpetuated.
Through the children and all.
Yeah.
And do the synagogues, do the congregations have any ability to reach the people? I know, I've said on this channel, oftentimes people know that I'm a Roman Catholic, a practicing Roman Catholic, and we don't really preach what's right.
Right.
We stay with the Bible.
They want to get,
we stay with the scriptures
into the political arena.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that the same thing that's happening in the congregations?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I made a decision when I started my congregation 23 years ago that we weren't going to become 501c3.
Okay.
I am not a nonprofit. And it took me many, many years. I had a lot of people who gave me a lot of grief. I said that we're not going there. We will deal with what needs to be done because we have a civic responsibility as well.
Right.
We have a responsibility first to God, then our families, our wives, our children, and then we do our civic responsibility. And I didn't want to abdicate from my responsibility because our goal is to give people an opportunity, not to force them. We're not under Sharia law. We don't make them do something. They have volition, they have free will, they can do what they want. But that being said, the government they're the camel under the door. Mm-hmm. And once they get their nose under the tent, you can't get them out.
Let me ask you about President Trump. Now, President Trump has, even in his first term, he accepted the movement of the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem,
which we applauded.
What do you think? Did that, in its way, because that was back in his first term, in any way did that antagonize Hamas, the Arabs?
They just wanted an excuse to be antagonized. In the Quran, nowhere in the Quran is the word Jerusalem mentioned. Mm-hmm. They don't even. It's supposed to be the third holiest site in all of Islam. Mm-hmm. But you don't have a lot of references. You do have references to Israel and the children. They call them B'nai Israel. My Arabic is poor, really poor. My Hebrew is much better. But they're the children of Israel. They received the Torah. They call it Torah. They believe in. They call it. Again, my Arabic is really poor. So the Torah they accept, but then they distort it. So one minute they say that God gave them the Torah, but they distorted it. Remember, Islam doesn't come till over 600 years after Yeshua, Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so I'd rather believe the ancient sources that we have archaeological proof, we have history, we have archaeological, we have documents that you can find today, copies of manuscripts. I don't know of any ancient archaeological evidence that even proves that the Quran is real. But in the Quran, the goal is to do away with anyone who does not believe in Big Al. Mm-hmm. I call him Big Al. Not to be cruel, but he's a false god, and I don't celebrate him, so I'm not going to give him the honor of calling him by name. I don't mean to insult anyone, but that's the way it is. You don't have anything from any ancient sources prophesying the coming of Muhammad. Mm-hmm. You have over 330 some odd prophecies, direct prophecies that speak of the coming of the Messiah. Mm-hmm. So all of these things that they are doing is to promote a false religion, and because they can't prove it archaeologically or historically, they want to prove it by force. It doesn't take much to stir them. Now,
President Trump, in this term now, is really following through on trying to bring peace to the Middle East. He has a peace plan that's out there. He's been working on. We got phase one. There's been some back and forth. It's been some broken, firings and things like that. What do you think his President Trump's motivation is, and do you think it will work at any level?
All right, let me address the second half of this question. I don't believe it'll work. Because, again, just read it in their own words. What are they doing in Michigan? Hamtramck, Ann Arbor, all the big cities are run by
Muslims.
Absolutely. They've changed the street names to, they're trying to, change the street names to Islamic figures. They're trying to push Sharia law. In New York, they have Sharia patrols in the street with cars that look like police cars, but they are morality police trying to enforce Islamic Sharia law. And so, honestly speaking, I don't believe these aspirations of Mr. Trump are going to work, because I don't believe there's a partner for peace. I don't believe it, because again, just look at their history and look at what they say.
Do you think any leverage from some of the other nations?
States?
Well, the Islamic states, even some of the Arab nations, Saudi Arabia, he's bringing in that. Do you think anything like will help with leverage?
If they are true Islamists, no. I can't assume that I know everyone's heart, but if they're good Muslims, no. If they're better people if they're not good Muslims, and they want peace. They might want something that is obviously more civil. Mm-hmm. But a good Muslim does not want peace. When the Quran says smite them at the neck, he's talking about beheading them.
Yeah.
When their writings say that Jews are the descendants of monkeys and pigs. When other parts of the Quran, I don't have time to quote all this verse verbatim, but I can get you sources. When it says that we should have our hands and feet cut off on opposing sides. The violence of the Quran is as clear as can be.
Yeah. And
Yeshua said, turn the other cheek.
And they follow through on it.
They follow through. Even if it takes them a while to enact, they're patient, because their goal, and just listen to their words, is to convert America to Islam.
Do you think the recent election of Zohran Mamdani as mayor of the largest city in
the financial capital, probably,
and the United Nations, ironically, I think the United Nations ought to be sent out into the Atlantic on a boat.
Jackhammer around it and tug it out into international waters.
That's beside the point. It is still the home of the United Nations.
Yeah, I know.
And it's ironic that this man became elected mayor.
Yeah, that's very frightening. Again, they've done it. This is part of their plan to bring in and impose into society Sharia law through legislature. They don't necessarily want to do it through violence if they don't have to. Again, hijra is the concept of jihad by demographic. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're going to do. That's what they're trying to do.
Governor Greg Abbott just yesterday, I believe, put CARE, the Council of Islamic Relations, as a terrorist organization, and has, I think, called in the FBI to look up Sharia activity happening in the state of Texas.
Our politicians need to read the Quran. They need to read. I don't think that, again, I've read these documents, I've studied them, I've read them to my congregation, and they dropped their jaw. Hamas, Fatah, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Houthis, Hezbollah. It's not Hezbollah. That's a disease. My God, Hezbollah.
That's Ebola.
Hezbollah, the party of God. They all, in their charters, state their goal is to take over the world and force us to do Sharia law. You cannot have a partner in peace when they don't want peace. They might feign it. There's also another doctrine called taqiyya. Taqiyya means they can lie to promote Islam and break their word after they've gained strength. There's too many doctrines that are spelled out clearly. You don't have to go too far to read them.
You know what? Our 30 minutes is over. I thank you so much, Rabbi Henry, for being with us tonight. And you have a book. You have several books, but you brought one with you.
You can't buy this. I give them away. It's called The Lord Chose ... Who? And it's a book about why God chose the Jewish people and how that affects our theology as believers in Yeshua, Jesus. And can I give my address?
Yeah.
Let me just give you my email. If you want a book, I'll send you a book. I don't sell the things of God. I have never sold one book. I'm going to give you my personal one. Ready? Get your pen. Benafucci, Benafucci, Benafucci at AOL.com. Give me a buzz. I'll get you a book. Such a deal. It's free.
Thank you so much. This is our Christmas, our holiday. We wish all of our viewers a season's greetings and the best. And this has been a very frank, insightful and
Well,
open
I was blessed to be here.
meeting. Thank you so much for joining
right,
us.
blessings.
Merry Christmas, season's greetings to
Happy
all our
Hanukkah.
guests. Thank you.